So another day, another mass shooting. Is it wrong for us to blame Republicans for this problem we're dealing with? Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. I'm also a lawyer and an academic, and I'm here to help you stand up to the BS of the MAGA crowd. So if you're like me, you had trouble sleeping after hearing about the latest mass shooting in Buffalo. And then I wake up this morning to hear about another mass shooting out in California. These happen so frequently, we've almost become numb to them. But the one in Buffalo in particular stands out because of the clarity of the statements that the shooter made about the reason that he was engaging in this terrorism. The alleged shooter there, Peyton Gendron, an 18-year-old white person, of course. Just as an aside here, I saw an interesting tweet that said that they knew the shooter was white when they saw that he was taken alive. I think that says a lot just there. But at any rate, not only is Gendron white, but he is a passionate follower of a philosophy called white replacement theory. So just what is white replacement theory? Well, white replacement theory is this idea that the Democrats are basically bringing in people of color into the country in an effort to try to essentially dilute the number of white people here. Now, this theory is obviously racist because, of course, we're a country of immigrants. We've continually been having new groups coming in and changing the demographic makeup of our society. The thought used to be that the true Americans were WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Well, that group is now a minority, outnumbered by the various ethnic groups that have brought their Catholic religion, or by black people, or by Latinos who are also generally Catholic. So America, as we know, is a melting pot where the demographic makeup of our society is constantly changing. Well, what makes this philosophy so insidious is somehow it convinces white people that they are somehow superior. And as such, if we dilute the pure white blood that flows through their veins, that America will be hurt. Because after all, white Christians as a group, according to this theory, are the only true Americans, ignoring, of course, the fact that there were already Native Americans here when they got here. Interestingly enough, research has pretty well confirmed at this point that this sense of being replaced is the fundamental factor that is driving white people to vote for, wait for it, Donald Trump. And it shouldn't really be surprising, given the fact that you have Tucker Carlson blatantly pushing this theory on Fox News, as well as other Republican leaders, most notably, of course, Donald Trump, and Elise Stefanik, the one-time moderate who's become a MAGA superstar and is now in the number 3 leadership position among Republicans in the House. I mean, you had an ad that Stefanik's campaign distributed that said that radical Democrats are planning their most aggressive move yet, a permanent election insurrection. Their plan to grant amnesty to 11 million illegal immigrants will overthrow our current electorate and create a permanent liberal majority in Washington. Stefanik's hometown newspaper, the Times-Union of Albany, wrote in response that Stefanik isn't so brazen as to use the slogans themselves. Rather, she couches the hate and alarmist anti-immigrant rhetoric that's become standard fare for the party of Donald Trump. And that's the point, is that the animating principle at this point of the Republican Party has become racism. Yes, we've heard again and again about how Donald Trump's support is based upon this sense of economic anxiety that so many Americans feel. But yet what the research has revealed is that economic anxiety really doesn't have much of an effect on the vote. Instead, what is driving the move toward Donald Trump and the MAGA crowd is this sense of status anxiety based upon their race. In other words, white people want to be treated as somehow superior to people with differently colored skin for the simple fact that they've got white skin. And the potential that this prioritization of these people based purely upon such a subjective characteristic is what has driven for them to essentially put our democracy in peril. Now, that shouldn't be too surprising, given the fact that the same kind of anxiety is exactly what resulted in true authoritarianism here in the United States, when we had the Jim Crow societies across the southern United States. Well, it appears that essentially what Republicans are trying to do is to win the Civil War that they lost the first time, and to spread the white supremacist authoritarianism of Jim Crow across the whole country. Now, I'm not alone to have noticed this connection, but I think something that's also forgotten is the fact that Republicans are also the ones fighting for ready access to weapons, in many cases without any kind of background check. There's no ability for us to identify people who might be mentally disturbed or inclined to engage in such a terrible act of terrorism. No, again, especially if the person has white skin, we're perfectly happy to give them a gun, which then they can use and go kill black people. So next time you see someone like Elise Stefanik or other Republicans crying their crocodile tears over the latest mass shooting, just bear in mind that they have a little bit more responsibility than they're given credit for creating the environment that allowed this type of terrorist act to happen. And when you think about it, it makes sense based upon their philosophy. After all, if their goal is to create a terrorist state that privileges white supremacy, then one way they can help enforce that is by giving all the white people guns. I'll tell you one more irony that demonstrates this fact, which is that back when Ronald Reagan was governor of California, he actually advocated the passage of one of the most aggressive pieces of gun control legislation in the history of the country. Now you might ask yourself, why would a good Republican, an NRA member like Ronald Reagan, push such legislation? Well, he was governor during the period when the Black Panthers were active in Oakland, California. And one of their strategies was to take advantage of the fact that California at the time had such loose gun control laws. They went and acquired for themselves all kinds of weapons and then made sure that they followed the law to its letter. All of a sudden, those white Republicans were interested in creating gun control to make it harder for these people to get access to weapons. And we saw the same situation happen last year when a group of black men were peaceably driving through Massachusetts. And when it was discovered that they had weapons with them, all of a sudden we had a multi-state, multi-jurisdictional effort to track them down. They never broke any laws, and yet the full weight of the law came down upon them because they were black. So don't kid yourself into thinking that the desire for ready access to weapons is not related to racism. The two, in fact, are intimately related. And the shooting in Buffalo is only one more sign of what's to come if we continue to allow the Republicans to spread their hate throughout this country. Well, why don't you check out this other video that I did on the scourge of racism here in America. I'll see you then. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.